Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Lyttelton Methodist Church renovation and revamp presentation. I'm terrified, I'm nervous, I'm excited. So let me just start and hopefully I will calm down and then Alan can do his bit. Alan is a member of our church. He was a member when I was here. I had the privilege of being part of the leadership of the youth ministry with him, and he's grown up to be a scary young man. But he's also qualified as an architect, and on our renovation committee we have 3 architects. We have younger people, we have older people, we have modern people, we have traditional people, we have laity, we have clergy. And so the idea was to get a good spectrum of our own congregation so that when we looked and started speaking, we could represent and try and cover the whole spectrum of our congregation. I do need to say from my side, when I arrived in 2019, I was shocked to see the condition of the church, the property, the grounds. And I'm passionate about making sure that God's property, God's sanctuary, looks good. You can stone me after this meeting, but I felt that the church was dirty. I felt that the church was neglected. I felt that the gardens were a rubbish dump. And so we started in 2019 with our garden cleanup. And slowly over the last 30 months, we've done quite a bit of stuff. But for me, it doesn't stop there. We are an aging congregation. And I think partly that's why they got a snot-nosed young minister in to kind of shake things up. And I'm hoping I'm doing that in a caring, pastoral way, because I am sometimes abrupt and forceful in wanting things done. But I do believe that we as Lyttelton Methodist Church family have the potential of growing again. And that means that as much as we want to hold on to the traditional and what we're comfortable with, there needs to be some compromise. There needs to be something that we do to invite younger people to come in. And so that's why we're doing this presentation, because we don't want to be one of those churches that closes its doors 10, 20 years' time. We want to be a church that is relevant, that makes the space for young and old to come together to worship God together. And so that's the vision behind today's meeting and really for the vision going forward, particularly from my side. I want to read from Haggai chapter 2 from verse 6. Haggai chapter 2 from verse 6. This is what the Lord Almighty says, "In a little while, I will once more shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land. I will shake all nations, and the desired of all nations will come, and I will fill this house with glory, says the Lord Almighty. The silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares the Lord Almighty. The glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former house, says the Lord God Almighty. And in this place I will grant peace, declares the Lord God Almighty." Thanks be to God for His word. I'm a person of faith. Some people say, "Charlie, you can't just," and I'm like, yes, I can. I believe. And particularly through lockdown, I have seen how God has blessed, how God has poured out, how God's abundance was freely made available to those that were willing to distribute and to care for others. And so some of the figures might scare you, but fear not. The silver and the gold is God's. And God is already shaking the earth. God is already shaking the nations. If this is not a more scarier time in history, then I don't know what is. Because people are living in fear, in trembling. Once again, we're closing church. Now is the time. And I honestly believe, I would have loved to have been building already, but there's processes and protocols and red tape and bureaucracy and slow minister and slow committee and all of that stuff. But anyway, before we start, I'm going to pray and then I'll just give you a guidance of where we're going this morning. Gracious Lord, we thank you for the plans, the dreams, the aspirations of what could be. And so, Lord God, as we present this morning, we ask for your peace for us. We ask for wisdom for those that are going to be answering questions. Lord God, we do ask that those that have the questions would have their questions answered satisfactory. And that we, as the community of faith that meets in this place, as the body of Christ, will be united together in growing our church, in creating a space for people to worship together when we are allowed to worship together. Lord, now is the time. May you shake the heavens. May you shake the earth. May you shake the sea and the dry land. May you shake all the nations, because this is your time. May the former glory not compare to anything of what the glory to come will be. Bless our time together. We ask and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Now, I'm going to hand over to Alan shortly, and he's going to share the video presentation. He's going to share PowerPoint presentation. There's different slides. But I do need to just make us all mindful, and I can promise you Alan's going to say this as well. This is a conceptual idea. We could not create everything as it is. So in the video, the stained glass window is white. We're not removing the stained glass window. The stained glass windows at the back, they are not being removed. But to actually get someone to color in those windows would cost us more than the renovation is going to cost us. I'm over-exaggerating. But it's a lot of money to go to that much detail. And so this is a conceptual 3D idea that has been built for the presentation. I need to say, and I've had some dialogue around the pews and the chairs. We show in the video pews and chairs. That is something that we're toying with, the idea. We might keep all the pews in place. We might take all the pews out. We might refurbish some of the pews and keep them with some new chairs. These are ideas that do not necessarily have to be finalized today. The color of the church inside and outside does not need to be finalized today. Today, we're really discussing the structural concepts, the structural ideas that need to be done so that we can go ahead with what is proposed. And so it's structural ideas that we are going to be discussing today. All right, Alan, I'm going to hand over to you because you know what you're talking about and I'm just waffling.
I don't know if this thing's on. Is this, can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. I don't know who hasn't been here before, who hasn't seen me before. I'm Alan. I'm going to try and go a bit quicker than the last meeting, and I also remembered a laser pointer this time, so I don't have to climb on a ladder to point things out on it. Charlie, where can I turn the lights down? Just slightly. Oh. This one. Is that fine? Let's turn it all off. Okay, I'm also just going to remove my mask. So now I know no one can run up on stage and chase me off. So yeah, Charlie approached us about almost a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, to start having a look at the church and some of the concerns. So I just want to sort of introduce who we are. Charlie did as well. If you go to the next slide, Warren. So we're a full-service architecture firm. We're registered with the South African Council of Architectural Professionals. I'm a registered professional architect. And we are, according to the law, allowed to do any architectural work. These projects that you see on the screen are projects that we've either been involved with architecturally or doing 3D visualization from. We opened in 2016, so we've been around for this is our 6th year in practice now. We have an office in Cape Town and an office here, and yeah, this is who we are. I'm a member of the congregation. Charlie approached us and that, so we are fully qualified to do this sort of work legally. Go to the next one. So just to orientate everyone, this is the building, the church as we sort of have it diagrammatically. This is the hall here. This is the sanctuary that we're in now, and the preschool is over there. and the children's church is down here in the middle. Just for those online, I realize can't actually see where I'm using the laser pointer, but I'm sure you can see with a closer screen what I'm referring to. So that's just the current building as it is, diagrammatically, how the current condition is. Go to the next one, Ron. So Charlie approached us about a year ago, and he raised the following concerns with us. We had a discussion, a meeting where we walked through the grounds, and we had a look at a range of different things on the grounds, and there was a lot of concern regarding the condition of the interior of the church. And I mean, if you're sitting here, you can have a look around. The carpets are pulling up. The paneling on the side is coming off. There's different kinds of plaster finishes. The ceiling is falling apart. So there is concerns regarding the maintenance of the building and that, and how we can upgrade and just renew the building. There's also concern regarding the condition of the pews. There's a number of graffiti on it, and there's also sort of the upholsteries coming apart on some of them. There's also holes in the floor just behind there. As you come in, there's a hole in the floor, obviously, where they cut in, and we had a look under there just to see what the condition of the actual timber floor is. And then I know also, for instance, here in this area here, there's a bit of lacking in the podium and the stage and that. So we had a look at that just sort of condition of the general building, and we also had a look at the fact that the cry room is excluded. It's stuck on one side, and people in the cry room sort of have to have a look around the corner, and the facilities in the cry room are not great at the moment. We had a look at what would suit the church best. How could we modernize the inside, upgrade the inside, renew the inside, rejuvenate it, and we had a look at how can we include the cry room into the space. And then also another concern was just accessibility. How does someone come into the church and move between different levels? How do you go from there to there? How do you go from there to the top level? Specifically, if you're a differently abled person, I wear glasses. If I've left my glasses at home, how do I get up the stairs? What is there to help me go up the stairs and that? We had a look at that. What are the concerns regarding how people move through the building and that? So go to the next one, Ron. So we had a look at how can we promote a space that would... How could we introduce a space that would promote inclusion? How could we include the people that are in the family room and the cry room to be part of the sanctuary? And this space also has to have functional requirements of including a feeding space, a bathroom, a basin, things like that. Charlie also wanted us to just address the concerns regarding the timber floor. I know there was termites at a stage. And how do we modernize this interior space? How do we give it new life and address the sort of different level changes outside the ramp outside that's exceptionally steep? If we move on from there. So we're predominantly looking at this area over here. And if we zoom into there, we can have a look at this is the current condition of the building. Here's the pews here. This is the little office in the front. There's the existing ramp, the stairs, the podium as we have it, the existing cry room, and I think it's the vestry or chapel. Okay, so that's the chapel there. Okay. And then we sat down with Charlie and we had a hard discussion as to, this all of this stuff costs money. What is nice to haves and what is have to haves, or need to haves? What are the wants and what are the needs? And we also recognize that the church is not abundant in money. There's no, we don't have an open budget to just do whatever we want to. There's a limited budget to it. So what we did was we decided to divide it into two phases. Phase 1 is the must-haves, and phase 2 is the if we can afford it and if we can go further, what could we do to address any more concerns? So we have a phase 1 and we have a phase 2. So phase 1 is the need-to-haves, and the phase 2 is the nice-to-haves. So what we did was we can divide it into phase 1 is inside the sanctuary where we're sitting now. Everything that's happening on the inside here, this is the need-to-haves. We need to do these things. We need to do maintenance and upgrade. And then the phase 2 is the nice-to-haves, and that's everything that's happening in the front by the entrance coming into the building. So if we move on and we just have a look at the existing building, just to orientate yourself again, this is the chapel here. This is the existing cry room. Here is the existing podium or stage and the pews with the sound desk at the back. We come in from there and we go across to that doors over there. So that's just to give us an idea of what the current condition is. And now we started having a look, Charlie, and we had a discussion within the committee as to what could this look like? What would the look and feel of this be? What can we do to the church to rejuvenate it within a budget, and that also allows for change? In the next 20 years' time, or the next 15 years' time, or the next 10 years' time, what can we do to enable the building to grow with the congregation as it goes? So we had a look at how we can address efficiently and with value sort of the materials that are in here. You know, we've got the current there's different plaster finishes throughout the whole sanctuary. There's different paneling. How can we introduce simple things that are effective and can make the space better? So we had a look at signage, even projecting things onto the wall with different finishes, upgrading the podium background, having a look at how the seating works with pews versus chairs, and then took it from there. So if we go to the next one, I think if you go to the next one. So this was our conceptual video. It's a summary of what we want to do. So it's gonna play some music and show you the video, but I'm gonna just talk through it as we go. There's some notes. I don't know if everyone can read it, but I will read it out. I understand there's a bit of a distance, so you can just push next. So I think everyone has already seen this. So this is the vision for the choir room with the glass connection. So you would, from the family room, be able to see the stage directly, but still be part of the congregation. Having a look at addressing the beams over here that are all different heights by introducing a single steel beam. We have an engineer on board who's gone through it, and to try and get this as open as possible to get rid of these bulky columns that are in there. And then I think, like Charlie mentioned, you know, we're having a look at our chairs going to be the best, and I'll touch on that now, why we haven't reached a decision as yet. A little screen wall at the back here. So that'll be at the back there, so we can introduce a new entrance into the choir room, or into the changing facility and the family room. Look at also just upgrading the podium to have a new altar rail and just to lower this so it can be closer to the congregation, so we're not so high up. Updating the ceilings lighting and with a bulkhead on the side so we can have a glow to the church, the chapel. It's a simple thing we can do. You can control the ambient mood. I think also just upgrading this area, this complete area, obviously maintaining the cross and just putting a new material and new lighting, new finishes and things like that on it. And here you can see just the idea with the lighting. So we'd put a sort of a shelf along the side of the wall, and we'd put a simple LED strip in it, and that would just give an ambient lighting to the church. And it means that you can control the atmosphere while you're doing things like communion or you're having a sacred moment. I think here you can see one of the ideas that came out through the meetings was perhaps even keeping half pews and half chairs, what that would mean for the church. Like I said, I'll touch on the chairs now when this is done. And then also just we're looking at upgrading the sound desk and formalizing it. You can go to the next one. Okay, so everything you can see here, this is the same plan if you can orientate yourself. Everything here that's in color would be the things that we're changing. So, you know, looking back here, we would be looking at putting in a wall along there where the chapel is and bending it back towards the outside wall and making a place there for a family room, a bathroom, a toilet, a changing space, and a nursing station. We would be removing the front piece of this, where the current cry room is over here, and then just looking at the chairs and the pews. Just on the chairs and the pews, it's a discussion we have to have. We have to find someone to see what the difference would be between refurbishing the pews and replacing them with chairs. The pews themselves, obviously, it's not such a simple thing. There's a mild steel frame in it. There's actual paneling in that. And that's going to be an exercise of seeing what that would cost compared to replacing them. Perhaps it would be efficient to just keep a certain number of pews, those that can be redone and reupholstered and cleaned and retreated. Obviously, it's a discussion that would involve cost as well, because that's a large number of man hours of taking the pews out, upholstering them again, and making them new. You know? So it's something that we haven't reached a decision as yet as the committee, but we need to address the pews. Whether we keep them or not, they need to be upgraded. They need to be, refreshed. And they also need to be lifted just so we can replace the carpet. The carpet, as you can see here, we want to replace the carpet. And what we'll do is we'll lift the carpet up, and then we'll be able to see the exact condition of the floor. And once we can evaluate the floor, then we can see, can we keep the whole floor, or would we have to replace portions of the floor, or is the whole floor affected? Like I said, we have an engineer on board They've come out and have a look. They've done a few conceptual ideas as to how we could replace the floor if we need to. But it would be best to first lift the carpet up and have a look at the floor. If we can save the floor, obviously we will save the floor because it would save us a large amount of money, and we can put that money in somewhere else then. So when we lift up the pews, that's the point when we can have it evaluated. What would it cost? How many pews need major refurbishment? How many pews don't need major refurbishment? So that is a decision that will come later, but it is something that needs to be done. We need to either replace them with chairs or upgrade them. So that's the one thing. Just on the carpet as well, we would have a look at putting in a different kind of carpet. This is a one piece of carpet that's been laid out. We would look at putting in carpet tiles. So if there's a tile that gets broken or damaged or whatever, you just lift one tile and you replace it. It's a bit more of a resilient way of doing it than having one single carpet that goes through the whole space. And so obviously to lay that carpet, we need to lift the pews because the pews are fixed down. And then if you go to the next part, we'll zoom in here and we'll have a look at this portion here is that piece over there at the back that we want to add. So you would come in from the back door, there would be a screen wall, and you'd come in the back here, and there would be a small changing space, a nursing area, a toilet, and a family room with a better view and more inclusive in the space. If you go to the next one. This is the sort of space that we would be looking at. So these images are not exactly what we want. It's just the sort of look and feel of what we're going for, of what our mind is telling us what could work in the spaces. So we'd be looking at a simple piece of furniture, simple space with maybe a shelf and a small tabletop for someone to nurse a child in privacy, and that. A changing room for mothers to change mothers and fathers to change children with a basin. If you go to the next one. We're looking at glass spaces that are able to see through here and resilient finishes that will last long, not carpet necessarily, hard surfaces and things like that. If you go to the next one. So this is an elevation. This is actually a little bit light on the projector, but this is that screen wall. We would be looking at putting something like this timber with new signage. Something that's missing in the church is just clarity as to what the church is doing at the moment. Like, what is the sign that says go left, go right, this is where the bathrooms are, this is where you come in. And just also carrying across a message like that. This is something that can change over time, but we can introduce soft materials like timber, more timber onto the walls and things like that. So this is the idea of what the church would then look like from the video. You can see up here would be the sort of podium or stage. Along here is the side-lit lighting, and here is the pews and chairs. There's the cry room over there, and here's the single beam, a column that we'd be introducing with a beam across. And this is the view from the front. We'd be keeping the stained glass windows, like Charlie said, just to clarify that everything you see here, image, we have to build from scratch. So we've got a team of staff members that build it. So if we had to build those stained glass windows, we'd have to come and take photos, and it would be a large amount of time that would just be for no reason. But we are definitely keeping the stained glass windows. This is sort of new altar rail, and this is what the new ceiling could look like with simplified downlighters and a bulkhead on the side to give sort of that ambient lighting. Just also what's been included is also the introduction of air cons, so that the church can be regulated and it can be a better environment on the inside. And this is the view from the back coming in, and then we would want to upgrade the sound desk and make it more formal. And just another view, looking from that side over there, looking towards the church entrance. There's the entrance there. And if you go to the next one, that's the view from the inside. There's the sort of podium stage there. There's the entrance, and here would be the seating. I don't know if it would be this formalized, but it would be a space for a family to be able to sit in. Small changing space with a window that exists there already, I think. Or I think that's that window up there we would use. And we would introduce a changing space with a small amount of storage at the bottom. With a sliding door going into the space over here, you'll see now is a small nursing area. And maybe a little bit small still, we might make it a little bit bigger. But this is just a simple idea of it would be a space where someone could sit and nurse and just have some time with their child if they need it, and then a simple bathroom or a toilet only, but the basin would be outside. And that's phase one. So that is all the have-to-haves on the inside. If we're looking at, just to keep in mind, in terms of when we get to the costing and the budgets, that would be phase one. All of that work is included in phase one, and that's pretty much everything up to up to that wall over there. So everything going that way, that would all be included. What maybe wasn't clear there was we would move this door over there, and we would also look at just closing off these yellow windows. Something that Charlie pointed out in our meeting is you can actually see a lot of people when they move past there, which is quite distracting. So we would look at that. And that's phase 1. So that's where we are with phase 1. And if we move to phase 2 now, if you go back one, sorry. So this is phase 2 here. So this is everything.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but can we maybe ask if there's any questions on phase 1?
I don't know if you want to do it that way around or not. You're welcome to. I also thought that might be a good idea.
Deal with phase 1, and then we go on to phase 2.
That's fine. Is there a way to know if someone is digitally asking questions, or do you have access to that? Or so just from my side, we will try and address all the questions. Some of the things we obviously haven't resolved as yet, like the colors and the exact color of the floor carpet. We don't know as yet what the exact color will be. That will be someone will bring us samples, and we'll be able to answer that question when we get there. But are there at the moment any other questions? Can we take the ones? I don't know. It might be just easier for me to either start internally and then go online, if that's okay. Okay. Is there any questions from anyone at the moment? Yes. I can't see who it is, and I might not know your name. So everyone at home can hear your question.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Doreen. Everybody knows me, I think. One of my questions, with regard to the cry room is also the flower room where the flowers are prepared. What will happen with regard to that?
So we're only going to cut it off here. If you look there where I'm pointing with the laser, we're only going to cut it off there, and that part where the flowers are prepared will remain. We're going to keep that basin, and what we can also do, then I know there's a rail going over the top, if I'm not mistaken, with a curtain and that. We can take all that stuff out because we won't need it anymore, and then that would be a dedicated space just for preparing for flowers and preparing for things that have to happen here. So that would remain in that sense. It's only the front piece that would be taking off.
It's only half of it that
only half of it going that way, yeah.
Okay. And whilst I've got the mic, I'd just like to say I don't like the idea of those chairs. I'm sure they're not very comfortable to sit on, and I don't like I just don't like the look of it at all.
Of the entire project, or just the chairs?
Can I say the project? Because
you can say whatever you want to say. Well, that's why we're here.
Can I say what is the need for this at this time, with having the COVID, and also with not having so many congregation now? What is the actual point behind this?
So I think if I can answer from my side, I don't know, Charlie would probably also answer from his side. If you don't address the problems that are in this building now, they will become worse. There are holes. There you can see water damage there. There are holes in the ceiling. There's a hole there where there's air coming through. There's a big hole there. There are holes in this building that need to be addressed. So you can choose to paint it the same way it looked, or you can upgrade it. And there are things that would just become worse. The paneling on the side is currently being affected by termites, if I'm not mistaken. And those things are things that, from a structural point of view, need to be addressed. And then the choice is just, we can either paint it exactly the same way it looks, or we can upgrade it. So from a functional point of view, it's definitely required that you maintain this building, because in the long run, the building will suffer. It is already suffering. Charlie and I have climbed on the roof on the back there. I'm pointing past the roof now. That's what I'm using the laser. So past the roof on the top, we've climbed on there, and there's actually big waterproofing problems that you guys have in it. So from a building perspective, irrelevant of a sort of what it looks and feels like, the building needs massive amounts of work. So if I can demonstrate to you you are looking, I think it's here somewhere. There we go. If I was to step as hard as what I can, I would go straight through this podium now. And you are looking for trouble if you don't upgrade this and fix it, because someone's going to come here one day and they're going to step through this. The first day I did it with Charlie, I nearly stepped through it. So from a building perspective is all I can answer as an architect. You do need to upgrade the building, and not just upgrade, but you need to maintain it. There's a lot of maintenance that hasn't happened. I don't know if Charlie wants to get into other parts of the building that we've also had a look at in that, but yeah, the building needs maintenance. From that perspective, that's what I would say. That's my why it's necessary.
From my perspective, as someone that has renovated homes and need to be honest, as a young person, and I'm realizing more and more I'm not a young person, I'm a middle-aged person. But as a middle-aged person, I don't want to come to this church because it looks old and dirty. I don't want to come here because it makes me think of old people. And now I'm being brutally honest. It looks old, it looks disgusting, and if we want to be a church that continues, we need to modernize. We need to become more inviting. And I don't want to lose the tradition. I don't want to lose the feel, because this is an awesome feel. But if we don't start doing something now and start fixing and repairing and upgrading, we are going to be irrelevant as a church. And it's no disrespect to our elderly congregation. I think you guys have kept this church going in difficult times. But now is the time for us to think not just of today, but of tomorrow, 10 years' time, 20 years' time. And can I tell you what? I know the dirt and the dust and everything that goes around with this. But if we don't do it now, and COVID has made it the perfect timing. If we don't do it now, we're not going to get another opportunity. And then we're going to sickle. And then we're going to just continue to slide on a downward spiral. And so for me, I know for some people it's not nice changing and moving forward. But if we don't do it now, this church will close. And that's, for me, the brutal, honest truth. Not too many young ministers will want to come into an aging congregation. I think I had an advantage or disadvantage because this was my home. And so I know of other churches where ministers are invited, particularly your middle-aged younger ministers, and they're like, no, too much work. I knew what I was coming into, and I knew it was going to be an uphill battle, some part of it. But I've loved it, and I would hate to see us not do anything when we have the potential right now to do a whole lot. Thank you, Doreen.
I do have another question. Obviously, this project is going to cost money. Now, where is the money coming from? Because as I understand it, the church isn't financially very well off anyway. So where's the money coming from?
Are you going to, can I answer? So we're going to get to that just in a little while. We've done a costing, and the church has obviously come with a budget that they have available, and we will deal with that. Just it comes a bit later in the presentation. Can I answer it then? Is that fine? Can we move on? Okay. Yes.
Just to say, your suggestions are excellent. I think it's great. I'm looking forward to seeing the inside redone like this.
Thank you.
Only one thing, chairs. You know, in economy class, you fly with armrests. Okay.
So are you saying we should go steal a few planes and then we put the economy class down here? So this is the debate, and in the committee, I see some of the. So we've presented this to the leadership as well, and that became a debate. And this is a debate. It really is. And we are not for, like I said, we are not for ourselves. We're not for or against either one of the two. But the reality is, where I was sitting there, just there where I was sitting now, on the back of that, there's a bunch of graffiti. And it's kids and stuff, it's no one that's vindictively, I think as a child, your mind wanders and you draw with a pencil and that. And so there are spaces where that just need to be touched up and redone and reupholstered. I think there's one back there somewhere that's broken. I can see from here too that I'm missing the side panels. So those sort of things need to be done. And then the question is just, when we get down there to the brass tacks, what's going to be more affordable? Is it going to be affordable for us to keep a select few of them, keep a number of them that we want to keep, or would it be more affordable to introduce some chairs throughout that? But that as a whole is not a choice as yet whether we will keep pews or chairs. That debate will come when we get to actually, I think what's next on our schedule is to actually get a professional person who does pews to come out here and tell us, guys, you're looking at X amount of money for so many pews, and we would then compare it to doing chairs, and then we would have a look at finding economy class chairs that would be comfortable. And I think also just to keep in mind, we're not thinking of just going and buying a number of chairs and putting them down, and that I think that would also be a process that we'd have to go through, the color of the chairs, the comfort of the chairs and things like that. And I know some people have already pointed out, you need backrests, you need specific things for people who are here and that. So that would be a process we would go through, but we're not quite sure yet if it's going to be pews or chairs. I think a large number of people are for the pews. If the pews are cheaper to keep, then we keep the pews. I think that's a budgetary question as well that needs to come about. But I do hear you, and I do agree that if you're referring to the red chairs at the top there, they're not always as comfortable, and especially with a hole in the back. I'm in my 30s, and I can agree with you that I would also rather fly first class than that economy. So we do hear you, and it is something that we are aware of and something that would come up during that process.
Just on that, Daniel, he's also part of the EVAM committee. He said about the chairs, there is the idea many couples that are getting married have not chosen to use our church, and one of the big things is because there's no center aisle. And so one of the ideas was we keep the pews on the sides, but make all these in the middle to be chairs so that you can move it around. The other idea is you get rid of all the pews and you have the chairs available so that it can be a multi-purpose venue as well. At the end of the day, the chairs, we're not going to just make a decision and exclude people. Once we've started, I know that Hartepiers Dam Church, what they did when they were building, they brought some chairs to the congregation. They said, yeah, our 5 different styles, different seating, comfort, long backs, short backs, and all of this. And they allowed every member to sit in the chair. They then had every member mark off which chair. And at the end of the day, one chair, I think, got more than 90%, and that's the chairs they went and bought. So it was the majority of the congregation that chose and got their way. And so we are going to be discussing that. It's not just something that we're going to do without people's buy-in, because at the end of the day, this is our church, and we want something that makes it comfortable for us to be here. Okay. So I do need to say that as Alan is speaking, I am answering questions on the 2 WhatsApp broadcast groups as best as I can. So we continue with that.
Is there any other questions?
We've had a question in terms of, has a sound engineer been engaged to ensure that the hall is acoustically sound?
Okay, so we don't have a sound engineer. It's a good question. Just on that, for obviously the person who's asking the question, I'm assuming is in some way inclined either in the profession or is in the building profession. So just to give you some clarity, a project like this would require a couple of professionals. It wouldn't just be an architect. There's also an engineer that would be on board. And as we go, we would have a look at getting specialists on board. That's a difficult question, but we would have a look at the sound engineer. The biggest concern I have with answering that question is we are limited to what we can do. So if we had an unlimited budget, there are amazing things we can do, especially when it comes to sound. You can get sounding boards above you, and we can make a beautiful auditorium space, but there's just no funding for it. So what we're going to be doing with the ceiling is pretty much just addressing the concerns and making it good, making it look good, fixing the holes that are everywhere. And that. The debate currently is whether or not there would be money for something like ISO board, which could provide some acoustic qualities. So in short, no, we haven't engaged with a sound engineer. Whether we will or not will be difficult to say, but we would if we could. I don't know if that makes any sense. If there is the scope to do it, we will. If there's not the scope to do it, we probably won't. Just purely on a cost perspective, and the sort of addressing sound things generally turns out being quite expensive. So, yeah, that's the short answer of that. No, but if we can, we will. Right, next question. I don't know, I hope that answers your question. Is there any more, Corin?
Not coming up straight
Okay.
away. The other one was answered by Charlie in terms of the flooring for the cry room, that would be child-friendly and not too cold in winter.
Yeah.
And then the windows for the cry room, Charlie also answered that we're looking at sliding windows possibly, and it would be soundproofed. So when possible, we'll open them up and include the cry room into the service area.
Yeah. So this is something that has come up. I know in our costing, we'll go through it. We have specified, sound resistant, or I don't know, it's not soundproofing, but whatever it is, to make that space soundproof with glass. We have included that in our costing. Can we move on to phase 2 then, Charlie? Corin, is there any more questions? Okay. So that's the must-haves, and now we're going to move on to the nice-to-haves if we, this would be the phase 2 of our project. So this is looking at the outside, and this is specifically looking at addressing 2 things: the entrance into the church, how you come into the church, and how you move between different levels. So that's how you see the church from the outside, and how you get from there to there if you need to go up further or go around or whatever it may be, how you access these different spaces. So if we go to the next slide one. This is the current situation. I think we've just missed that brick wall that's there, though. There's a brick wall there with the planter in it. Sits over there. Sorry, our drawing doesn't show that. But here's the ramp. There's the stairs. There's the roof overboard. You park here somewhere, and you come in to the church that way. So this was our inspiration. We had a look at just different churches. In the video as well, I'll explain to you how we came up with the form. I think something that we also just need to address while we're here is the church building itself. If you go look at the building itself, consists of a number of different pastiche pieces that have been stuck onto it over the years. This was a building on its own. You can see the columns, the lines that used to be there. There's a stormwater drain that runs along the entrance there against the wall, if you've never noticed it, which shows that that part of the building was actually outside at a point. That piece since I've been in the church, it's always been there. But if you look at the different floors, that piece is a solid floor and this is a timber floor. There's also spaces in there where the columns were. So that piece was added on at some point. I know the older congregation will probably be able to tell me exactly what was added and when it was added. But the building itself is not a coherent building. It wasn't a single building that was built with a single vision from the beginning. I know that James Reed Hall, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was originally the church and then it moved here. So the building has come about. I know also the cry room at one point was where the office is now. And going through the historical drawings, we've seen drawings of how the building was actually planned at one point and was approved by council, but wasn't built like that. So the building itself is a combination of different buildings that has grown over time. And if you spend some time just looking at the building, you can find these little clues. So what we did was we haven't had a look at just generally going to go stick something else on there. We've tried to look at what is the single thread of idea that's run through all these buildings. And some of it is form. A lot of the building's forms that have come through from the front is triangular. The building in the front, the entrance into the old church was triangular. There's a steep pitched roof. We estimated it about 55 degrees, 50 to 55 degrees. So we've done that sort of homework on the site before we've come up with an idea for how we could upgrade the entrance and coming in response to that and in respect to that. We don't want to throw that character away. We want to keep that character and celebrate it. And that's also where we're trying to look to keep things, artifacts throughout the building that are of importance. The stained glass windows, the cross in the front, the cross at the top of the entrance space and that. So those sort of things we don't want to get rid of. We want to reuse them, reusing doors and things like that. So just keep that in mind as we go. So this is just an idea of what we had a look at. We had a look at what makes a church. A church, historically, high spaces, high volumes, Gothic architecture, and that often made spaces go towards the heavens. And this is evident here. I mean, we could be in a much lower space quite fine, but the volume is what we're looking for. And then we had a look at how light comes into buildings and how people celebrate light with churches. And if you move on from there, or just before you push the next one. So this is just, I think you've all seen this, but I'm just going to run through it again like the last one. This one's got notes on just as to what we're trying to show. If you go one. See my lasers. So having a look at the existing entrances, they're sharp triangular forms. I think this is actually a bit lower, but these go up like this. So what we did was, we originally had an idea of how we could get that ramp to work, and to get it to comply with legal requirements, it actually needs to be 1 to 12, which means the height that it rises needs to be 12 times as long. So it actually only works, it doesn't actually fit in here no matter how we do it. And that's what resulted in this idea. So as part of the solution, we put the ramp on the outside of the building, and then Cleve pointed out to us that if someone needs to use the ramp, they have to go out the building and then come back in again. So that didn't quite work. So we had to look at reintroducing an entrance space that could be covered and could incorporate this ramp to make moving through the church much easier. So we had to look at the triangular forms, and we tried to mirror that through a shape like this, but allow sunlight to come through the top. We had to look at the existing height of there's a beam that runs over the top there, and we used that as our datum point to move up and create a space that allows light to come in at specific times. Simple construction methods. This is how you would build factories in a sense. So not complicated. We don't want to complicate it. We don't want to make it expensive. We don't want to make it too sort of imposing. We had to look at the space in front of this then could mean that the congregation could spill out to the front of the space. This is the existing office here. And how we could make this whole wall disappear in a sense, get a folding stacking door in, a walk-off mat, and how the entrance could be a bit more welcoming. I know we often get stuck around the corner here filling in forms on that little table, and how you would then go through this. We'd keep the stairs the way they were, and we'd introduce a much easier to use ramp. I think something we just missed there was, I'll go through it now, it's just how the sunlight would work. Okay, or if you go there, you can go. So, in short, what we're saying is the ramp that's there is problematic. It doesn't comply with the law, the current law. I don't know if it complied with the 70-something or 68 law when it was built, the building, but I can almost guarantee that ramp has never been legally allowed. It's just too sharp. The gradient is too steep. And if you come down there, it'll be like a Formula One race. You would just go straight into the office. You know, there's no breaks for you. Unless you've got someone to help you, you're just going on, you know. And I mean, if you actually go outside, stand next to the stairs, it's marginally longer than the stairs. I mean, you might as well just put a plank over the stairs and roll up the stairs. So we need to address that ramp. And if you look at over here, you can actually see again, the red is the color is where what we'd be changing. That's the length of the ramp. And this length is 1:15, which is a little bit longer than what we require. But in our experience and international standards, that's a much easier to walk up ramp, much nicer to use, and it creates a volumetric space here. So for reference, this red line, I don't think it's actually visible at this distance. It's a bit difficult, but this red line where the laser is here, that's where the current masonry, the small wall with the planter in is. So we are sticking almost within that space. We're not building a massive extension going that way. We're not affecting the parking. We're sticking within that space. So what we're saying is the 3 doors that are here in the front, we take them out and we push that wall forward and we make that one big entrance space where people can, you know, just sort of as you go out, you can congregate there and then move outwards. Or if you're coming in, you get that sort of stepping through and then coming into the chapel, but while addressing the need for a new ramp and new stairs, the stairs remaining, and a new ramp going up there. That's pretty much the bare basics of what we're introducing there and what we're suggesting. If you go to the next slide, Warren. We had a look at just sort of how ramps work, they can fit in there, and how we approach a church, sort of what is it that makes a church let me rephrase that. How do you identify where to go in a church? If you look at currently why that timber A-frame is over the front of the door, it serves no purpose in terms of the building. It doesn't hold anything up or show anything. So in terms of a building function, it has no function. But in terms of a church function, it has a very important function. Because when you park, or you come into the church, or you come towards the church, you know exactly where you're going. You know that's where I'm going. There is the entrance, there's height there and that. So we had to look at how that works as well in terms of a church. How do you approach a church? A church doesn't necessarily need to look at a church, but look like a church, but those sort of symbolism and that sort of guiding language, in a sense, is what we looked at and how we could incorporate that. Go to the next one. And then we just looked at what this wall would be like with light coming in, how it could come through this top window that's above here. If you go to the next one. So this is just looking in section. What we did was we took that shape, that would be the normal, match the shape that's existing here on the front, and we cut it down and said if we bring light through here, it would spill onto this wall as you come in, and you would get this sort of effect. If you put a louver over there, you get this effect on the wall. So you would come in along here, and you'd have a double volume. You'd step down lower as you come through, and then you would come into the chapel space. And this would create a space that you could arrive at church before you go into the church. So you don't just walk straight into the building. The space already exists. That's what that space there does, but we just want to give it more volume while we're in front there and sort of make it more space. And what that would look like here, looking from the other side now, you would see the window on the front here, and there's the ramp that would go up. So, and this is existing. This is the existing building here. So we're not introducing a massive new building. It's a small piece that goes in front of it. If you go to the next slide. So that's pretty much what it would look like. This is the existing parking. There's the toilets and stuff, and anyway, which are right by the front door. All the toilet pipes and toilet windows are there. The A-frame sits here, and I think that cross sits up here somewhere. You reuse that cross, reuse the doors that exist already. So that's a functional requirement. If there's a funeral or something, you don't want to be doing a bunch of turning and a bunch of getting around and that. We'd be introducing a walk-off mat. We can catch the dirt and that before it comes into the building, and then a hard surface like tiles or a screed or something like that. Bollards, and then we have a space here that comes for people to congregate in front and talk and feel safe from cars and things like that. But also because the space is bigger, you could do it in front. So this would become sort of one sort of open space for the congregation to talk and serve tea and coffee and things like that. Right, Warren? This is what it would look like from that side. I think you can just see how what we did was we just cut this down to allow sunlight coming through there, and then to go onto this wall in the back there, you would get those sort of shapes and forms as you come in. And that would be the look from the inside standing on the ramp. Here you can see the ramp, so you've got a much bigger space on this side, and then you step down as you go into the church, and then it will become big again, the volume in other words. So you have a space where you can arrive, collect a pamphlet. There's also storage space here in the back, a very simple cabinet that we could make, and storage space going into the back of it. So that's in short what our proposal to the church was and what we've gone through the committee. Like I said, we made a proposal to the church, and I'm sure everyone who was on Zoom or saw the original proposal will realize that this part is completely different to the original part. I've still got 2 more slides. So yeah, so now we're going to get to budget and that. So there's 2 more slides left, sorry. So I just want to say this was completely different to what we originally proposed. But through our workshopping and sitting, I know like Charlie said, there's 2 other architects on the committee as well. One of them is Cleve. And we just went through it, and we've spent a number of days here investigating if we go out the building there, or go around here, or if we cut this floor up and we make the ramp different and that. And this is the solution that we came up with. So this is very different to what we originally proposed for phase 2, or the outside of the building. So just keep that in mind. So then what we also did was we sent these plans off to be costed. We have a set budget, and we sent them off to 3 contractors, and they costed them. Just a caveat on that, they haven't updated their cost to match the new design. So I'll explain now where we are with that. But phase 1 is still 100% accurate. The minor changes we've made, we've moved the door a little bit left or right. We haven't changed major there. So our numbers for phase 1 are right. The numbers for phase 2 needs to be updated. Right, so if you go to the next one. So we got 3 contractors out, and they all submitted a cost proposal to us. I don't know, Charlie, our budget is 1.2 or something, or somewhere there. So so phase 1 is here. We had LRN contractors, Orient come out, and Projo Projects, and they gave us 3 costings, and they came in at, the first one came in at 1.5 million, which was completely off of anyone's sort of professional reference or not. It's way out of budget. And they didn't submit a phase 2, so we are not considering their information. The second one came in phase 1 at 977,000 and change, and the third one came in at 941,000 and change. So just to be clear, phase 1 is completely within budget, and there's still money left afterwards. And the big thing there is that phase includes the floor. If we have to replace the whole floor with a new concrete floor, we take out the timber, we put in a new concrete floor, we put carpets over it. If we replace, no, it doesn't include the chairs. So there are spaces to workshop that to make it cost less. But what is good is to start with, we are within budget with phase 1. So we can do all of that with the budget and the money that's available to the church. I think Charlie will be better to elaborate where the money comes from. I don't know where the money, I just know what our budget is. Charlie would know where the money comes from and that. That's not my hat that I wear. But what is reassuring is that phase 1 would be within budget. We could do all of that work inside and have change for something else. So what we did was we said, okay, let's have phase 2 costed. Unfortunately, people do these costings for free, so it takes time to get it from a builder. They have to pay their staff to do it and that. So we haven't, as yet, got an update on phase 2 from the builders. That was for the previous design. So what we did was, Daniel is a construction manager, I think it is, and he has a lot of experience in it, and we sat and we gave an estimate from our professional side as to what we think it would cost. So phase 2 we don't have in full yet, but we think we are roughly 400 to 500,000 rand short for phase 2. So we expressed our concern to Charlie that perhaps we should have a look at minimizing the work to be done. And Charlie has always just said, no, let's look at going ahead and rather looking at raising the money. So that's where we are in terms of the project. We are not within budget in phase 2. We are still short of that budget, but we are within budget easily for phase 1. So that's just my budgetary. I'm sure Charlie will elaborate on that. So if we go to the last step, just to give everyone some idea of what the process from here would be, the church as itself has to approve it. Nobody has been appointed yet, but then the architects and the engineers and stuff will be appointed. Then we would go to council. Council would approve our plans. We need to show council everything we do, that they're happy with it. And then we go to a tender negotiation. We would put the plans out to the same 3 people again. They would tender with us, and then we would sit down, and I know there was some concern from one of our last meetings. We're not getting a bucky builder. We're getting people that are registered with the NHBRC, that have professional indemnity and insurances in place, and we would want to have a look and see at the work that they've done and actually chat to their previous clients and go out and see them in that. So that's sort of what's next, and I think that's all for now for the presentation from my side. Okay. Is there any questions in terms of phase 2? I think that's going to be the most questions. But.
Any questions on the second phase being enclosing the outside area where we're currently doing our registration and extending our ramp to being a lawful, legal ramp? Any questions on phase 2? Okay, just going to run down.
I'm just glad everyone hasn't fallen asleep yet.
I just want to find out, on your slides, you showed the paving outside here, where the people congregate. Is that included in phase 2?
No, we haven't had an exact look at it. But that is something, I'm going to get feedback. That is something, if I understand what you're trying to say is, are we going to have paving there or not? And I'm not sure as yet. I don't think we've addressed it in that much detail, but it would be a surface that's resilient, and we would always suggest a surface that requires least amount of maintenance. If you want to bring greening in there, I know there's greening along the wall, but I would suggest those pot plants and stuff that are here, that's the sort of approach you should have there, because people walking over it, I think, would kill it, and maybe not as like those exact ones, but to bring in those sort of trees. And I know in phase... We joke in our meetings, but Charlie has like 32 phases, but the next phase is to put a cover up there with canvas. So in the long run, there is more work there, but we are not going that far yet. So in short, I'm not sure if it will be paving, but I think it would be something hard surface so that it's less maintenance than that. But I can't answer as yet if we would have paving there yet.
So currently outside there, we have the bricks. The idea is long-term. When I first arrived, we were having tea and coffee under the tree here. And then we, as a leadership, said, what about we do it in the hall, particularly during the winter, and it worked. But long-term is to, once phase 2 is completed, to have a canopy, whether it be a lean-to or a lever, canopy out there, so that we can have our tea and coffee outside here. So, yeah, Alan and them joke, I'm on phase 30 already. This is just where we're starting my whole plan. I did send a little Charlie's vision for LMC, because there's lots of work that I believe we can do with regards to that. I'm not going to answer the financial question yet. I'm just going to deal with all the other questions, and then I'll get to the financial question last.
Okay, Charlie, we've had a question whether there's consideration for an emergency first aid space.
In short, no. No, we can. I'm not sure what you mean in terms of first aid. If someone gets hurt, how do we get them out? So, like I said, we thought of a procession for a funeral, so there would be a straight line out. I mean, there's a 1.5 meter space for you to go out. I think also I'm not sure in one of those slides. Can you quickly go back there? I don't know if everyone can see, but right, there's one. What we suggested here was not within the building contract, but something as the community. I know the community built the wooden frame on the outside, and that is to build another artifact like that, is to build a counter here, and we could store a first aid kit that we require at the back there. So in short, no, I'm not sure what sort of emergency you would have in mind, but general emergencies like someone needs to get out quickly or whatever, that has been accounted for in that sense. But a staging space, no. Like if you have to put a gurney down or something, no, it hasn't been accounted for.
So in an emergency, our staff are first aid level 1. They've had their training. What we would do is between the society steward and the steward staff, they will deal with that emergency. If it's in a service, they will try and take the person out into that particular phase 2 area and to deal with the emergency there so that there's minimal disruption of whatever is happening in the sanctuary. There is no particular space for first aid, if I can call it a waiting area, other than the space up the ramp or out this door over here, which would be sufficient to have the wheelchair. The wheelchair actually stands here at the moment for emergencies. So there is a space over here. Okay. I've got a lot of people saying we're happy with the ideas, phase 1, phase 2, well done. I'm happy with the plans. Progress is important. Somebody spoke about if we're going to be taking the pews out, there's some memorial plaques on the pews. If we do take it out, there would be a memorial wall place for those plaques. We will not just be throwing them away. I think that is just rude. Brilliant designs, fantastic new modern face to an old church that brings the old building into the future. Yeah, that's on the one group. Let me just see the other group that I've lost. Okay, there we go. We are looking at the possibilities of recycling our old furnitures or furnishers, particularly these double doors. We're not going to just discard them. One set of the double doors will be used for the outer door on the corner so that we don't lose that. So as far as possible, we are going to be using what we've got because we do know that finances at the end of the day are going to be a little tight. Okay, yes, both strongly support the proposal. So yeah, majority of people are very supportive of the ideas, or phase 1 and phase 2. There are small things that we've answered. What I will do is I will put this all on a, well, I've spoken about most of them here now, but I will also put it on a letter and send it out to the congregation. Any questions further? And then I'm going to speak to the financial issues.
Okay, can I run away, Charlie? I didn't see the question. Nearly got out of here.
Just short, the water, if we have a high-felt thunderstorm, where does the water flow?
So this was one that's come out already. There is a gully there currently. So there is a gully there, but we obviously can't put stormwater in there. We can't put stormwater into the gully because it's a drain. What we can do, and it's not a very complicated process, is we can lift that part of the... sorry, hang on. Let's start the whole answer again. Are you referring to the space between the building where the toilets are, or just in general the water flow?
In general.
Just in general, okay.
In general.
So the space in the back there, we could lift the actual site so that the water runs away from the building and runs past it and goes into the existing drainage that's there. That's the approach. If not, if we do paving that's out there, we can replace the paving to put in some permeable paving so the water goes through the paving and stays on site. It's the better environmental solution, but it costs a bit of money. The other option is we can just take rows of paving out and put every third or fourth row some permeable paving to try and keep the water there so it can go into the ground. And then obviously slope the ground so that whatever doesn't go into the ground goes into the existing channel that's there and goes away wherever I think it goes into the stormwater down on the corner there and then goes under and out. So yeah, in short. In a perfect world, we would have permeable paving everywhere and it would go into the ground and we would keep it here. And that's the best environmental solution, is we don't want all the buildings in the area putting their stormwater in one little pipe down the road there. That's more the problem with high-fault thunderstorms than locally here. But yeah, in short, we would put it into the existing. Sorry, long answer for a very short question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Daniel's being naughty. Yeah. Okay. So now coming back to Doreen's question about the finances. In 2019, we sold the one manse down the road, 272 Monument Avenue. We realized from the sale of that property just over 1.4 million rand. We invested with immediate effect then 1.2 million rand. The other 260,000 we used to do much needed repairs to 111 Monument Avenue, the house next door, as well as to 111 behind me. So 111 and 111, those 119 and 111 Monument, the houses on either side of the church, got renovated. They've got Harvey tile roofs, the bathrooms got tiled out, the kitchens got done, the floors painted, everything was done. So that's where that other 260,000 rand went. So we still got our 1.2 million rand. Then what we did as a leadership, we started putting whatever rental income we got, we put into a maintenance fund, maintenance trust, property and maintenance, because it is coming from property, so it needs to go back into our property. And so there's some money there. What we've also done, we started a rainy day fund. Now, rainy day fund, we've used a little bit of that with when we needed to waterproof and paint the education center, and that we did in level 4 because we were having continuous leaks there even after we tried to patch it. And that's just purely neglect, no one looking after the properties. And so we had to spend, I think, 60,000 rand there. So we dipped into our little fund. So currently we have 1.2 million rand in investment. Within the other funds, rainy day maintenance fund, we are able to get hold of, and I don't know, borrow, use, acquire legally about 150,000 rand there. So we stand on 1,350,000. So thumbs up, we're about 350,000 rand short. If we're going to do chairs, we're looking at more than 1.7. Currently, we're looking at about 1.7 that we need. And so the renovation committee, the finance committee, the leaders have suggested that we start a formal building fund to raise that 350,000 rand, that we have book sales and fetes, and all of that, I need to say, are great ideas. However, to make matters more interesting, we're in the middle of a world pandemic. So as much as we've got these great ideas to raise the funds, we can't have a fete. We can't do things here at the church that attract numbers of people. But one of the ideas is, and it's an idea that's come with the church for quite some time, is auctioning off talent, auctioning off what people are able to offer. So Alan is an architect, and he says, as an architect, every now and then they have these youngsters that need to go to an architect or spend time with an architect to see if this is actually what they want to do. And so we can get the family to pay the church to have someone follow Alan around at the office. I don't know if anybody wants to be a minister, but you guys can follow me around. You can pay R1 million for that. I'm looking at baptizing children. It's 100,000 per baptism. Just putting it out there. No, I'm joking. People, don't take me wrong. So, Doreen, to be honest, we short 350,000 rand to do what we have proposed. My proposal is that in faith we step out and we get the engineers appointed, we get the architects appointed, we get the plans drawn up and sent out to get approval, as well as then to get costing or quotes done on them. In the meantime, we as a congregation need a buy-in. I know that there's an individual that covered the cost of the tiling in the gents' bathroom, right through to the ladies' bathroom, into the kitchen. And I know that person has already put probably this here, trying to work out the maths, about 50,000 aside. And that person has said, Charlie, when you need it, it's there. So that's available. If members would like to say, I'm willing to buy a chair, I'm just going to do that, a chair or a pew to stay and pay 500 or 750 rand towards that, great. When I was here as youth pastor, our combi was stolen, and I don't know if the folk that were here can remember our Mercedes Sprinter bus. The church said, Charlie, we're not going to buy a new bus. And I said, but please, Mal, you were part of the finance committee then. And we took our deposit, and I got a committee together, and the only thing that it cost us then, before I left, was that deposit. We had members in the church contribute, buy seats, buy the mirror, buy the steering wheel, and then we actually had a company, members of our church, that pledged to pay the monthly installment as well as the insurance. Now, I know that some people will say we're not an affluent church, but I need to say we're more affluent than many. I know that in the last 3 years, this church's income has been more than it's been in previous years, in the last 10 years. We've had some months where our budget is 180,000, and some months we've got 220,000 in. And that's allowed us to do more things. So pre-COVID, we weren't doing the mission work that we were doing. We weren't buying food. We weren't food packs. We weren't doing as much groceries handing out as we've been doing. And so when the need arose, we shared, and people were very generous. This is one thing I've learned about Lyttelton. We are very generous people. And so from a business perspective, from an architect's perspective, they stress about the finances. But that's why I read Haggai. The silver and the gold, that is God's. It is all God's. And I once heard a minister say, but all the money's in your pockets. I don't want to say that. But the reality is, it's in God's hands. And if this is what we want to do, I believe God will touch people's hearts. And God will move people to saying, here's money. Here's 10 rand. Here's 100,000 rand. Here's 10,000. Here's 200. Because I need to say every 10 rand counts. Every 1,000 rand counts. Every 10,000 counts. And we've got a phenomenal family. I've been blessed the last couple of months to be able to visit people again and go into people's homes and their stories. And the stories of this church and what this church has meant is why we carry on. I love the local church. Whichever local church God places me in, I fall in love. And I need to say we have so much potential. so much potential in this building, so much potential in the people known as the church. And so I don't believe the finances are going to be a problem. If it is, I'll come knocking on your door and beg. All right, are there any questions around the finances? You may not put up your hand. You may. All right, Alan, you're going to have to run now. Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? So it's just a clarification. It's not a question. Something just to be clear about, if you apply to do it all to council, it costs X amount of money. If you apply to only do the first, it still costs the same. But if you get approval to do everything, you don't have to build everything. You're not obliged to build everything. If you understand what I'm trying to say, is we could apply to do everything, and we have a year. We get the rights to build that, to start building. So once you lay the first brick, then you can build whatever you want to build for that year. You can start within a year, and then you've got the rights to build on that plan however much you want to or can afford. We don't necessarily, if we get it approved, have to build everything from that sense. So just keep that in mind, that we can go ahead and we can keep going, and if we get there to X or whatever, we're not forced to build that then. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, I just got to run away from that speaker because I don't know if I'm the right mic or...
I actually don't need it. So, sorry, my concern is that we all need to start praying now for the residing circuit superintendent to keep Charlie here for at least another 7 years. We don't want him to get halfway through and they move him away. We've seen it happen twice in the local circuits where ministers have been transferred. They've built a fantastic church. Midstream is one example. And the moment they'd finished, they transferred the minister away. And what happened then? Everything went southward. They then brought Jenny Buerter in. She took it up to heights again. And what happened then? Transferred her away. And that is what they do. So I think we need to pray and get the superintendent to agree on Charlie staying here for at least another 7 years so that we can really complete everything that needs to be done.
If I can just respond to that, and I'm not sure whether this has even crossed the leadership's mind, this is my 3rd year. And next year, the leadership need to consult with the superintendent about my 2nd term of invitation. That discussion needs to happen next year if you want to keep me any longer. Okay. Any other questions around the finances? Alan?
No, just to answer, we're not going to take 7 years to build that. Hey? Okay. I was scared, no, I know you might know, just for everyone, so everyone knows it's not going to take 7 years. I hope we're done before 7 years. Yeah. No, I know. I'm just scared. I'm not saying you necessarily. I'm scared someone else might think we're worried about 7 years of building the thing. No.
No. My plan would be phase 1 and phase 2 be completed. I know Alan's frowning, but if we can get this approved and get it through council, I would love to see it done before Christmas. I would love to see it. I know it's optimistic. So let's see. Let's pray. Any other questions around finances? Any other questions online or via the group? Mel did ask that she gets excused. She has another appointment that she needs to get to. All right. And so I'd like to make the suggestion that if you would like to start contributing to the building fund, you mark it in your EFT's building fund. When we do start in-person services again, and you would like to bring, then we will make sure there's a wooden box there with a lock on it. So your pledge or your giving towards the building fund goes in there, because we do need to start a separate fund towards that. But can I now ask, and those watching online, you need to listen very carefully. Those here present, you can listen just as carefully. we need your yes, or your no, or your neutral for us to go ahead. And so I think I'm going to start with the no's. Are there any no's, as in no, we should not go ahead with this proposal? Let it be recorded, there are no no's for the people in person. The guy on the committee, Daniel, that is a construction manager, has said from building start to completion will take us 3 months. So if we can look at starting September, October, November, we're in by December. Alan's shrieking. Anyway, I can see Daniel laughing at Alan right now. All right, are there any neutral? Any neutral? Okay, here's one from Cleve. Thanks, Alan, for presentation. Go for all phases on approval, and let's start. Doreen? Neutral. Okay, we note the one neutral from Doreen Kalu. Thank you for that, Doreen. All right. Any other neutral? Okay, then I'm going to go and ask anybody saying yes to the proposal for us to go ahead. You're allowed to vote. All right. Okay. So we've got the one neutral and all the others are positive in the affirmative. And I'm getting votes yes, yes on the groups, yes. You're welcome to, on the broadcast groups, put yes, neutral, or no. Those will be correlated later as well.
There's also the chat on YouTube, Charlie. We've had 2 on our YouTube, yes.
Chat on YouTube, there's 2 yeses there. I'm getting a lot of yeses. And so what I'm going to suggest, I'm going to ask those online, let's call it a vote. If you would vote no, neutral, or yes. If you would like to stay anonymous, you have my WhatsApp number and you can send it directly to me because some people might not want to do it publicly. You're welcome to do that. But I'm going to ask if we can finish all the voting by 11:15. That gives us 15, 20 minutes. And then what I will do is I will post it on the group once I've correlated everything. I'll ask Karen to assist me with that and maybe one of the society stewards that are here. So from the in-person votes, we've got one neutral, the rest are all yeses, and majority, well, I've only seen yeses on the 2 WhatsApp groups, and so we wait for further notice of that. Is there anything else that we need to chat about now? Yeah. So if we are still close to in-person services, we will stay online. But if we are allowed to start our in-person services and we're looking at starting our construction, then we will use the James Reed Hall as our sanctuary, and we will worship in the sanctuary until this work here is completed. So the moment we're allowed to have in-person services, it's either going to be here. If the work started here, we will move into the James Reed Hall. Thank you for that question. Yeah, from the old church into the older church. All right, any other questions? Just want to check on, Karen, anything on the online chats?
No, Charlie, we've just had another few yeses come through, but no further questions.
I've been asked how many people are there in person. There are currently 15 of us in person here at the church at the moment. So that would mean 1 neutral, 14 yeses. So there's a whole lot of yeses. If I may just share, I've been asked, what about future plans? I did send out that letter that stated my kind of vision. I believe once we've done phase 1 and phase 2, the next important thing would be is to make sure our tiles, the roofs are waterproofed of this sanctuary, of the over the office space, as well as then the kitchen and the James Reed Hall. That would probably be phase 3 in 2022. Then we're looking at doing the tiling in the kitchen and probably the ladies' walls in their bathrooms, the floor in the hall. We are also looking at considering solar panels down at the education center. So the education center in Creche goes off the grid. We are also speaking about replacing our gutters and getting water tanks or JoJo tanks. I know there's a whole bunch of different names, but I know JoJo tanks to harvest rainwater so that particularly over our drier months, we then pump the water into our garden to water the gardens. So yeah, if I'm here for 7 years, 7 more years, should I say, I would love to, whether it's 7 more years or 20 more years, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, I would love to see this church becoming an environmental friendly church. So it's about being off the grid. It's about having the water tanks. We are currently busy digging up the front pavement. We are going to be planting vegetables there so that if people are hungry and there's something that's available there, they can come and pick. We want to be a church within the community that makes a difference. And so it's not just about the properties, but it's also about growing our small group ministry. I believe the key to anybody's spirituality is belonging to a group where there's accountability, where there's friendship, where there's fellowship. And COVID has robbed us of that. But I do pray that when we are over this, when we've gone through this, that we would be able to join together in people's homes, fellowship and worship together, and just allow God to move in us and through us as we grow stronger spiritually as God's church. Okay, I've got a whole bunch of, So I haven't had any no's on the groups. I've had some private messages, and they all thumbs up, go, go, go. We're also being told on the group we can use SnapScan for people to make instant donations. They've put it on the WhatsApp group that people can use the SnapScan. So I've got a lot of yeses coming through. So I've only got yeses coming through at the moment. From my side, that's what I've got to share. We took this through the revamp committee, revamp and renovation committee. They presented it to the leadership. The leadership have now presented it to you. And from what I can see, we have very affirmative yeses to us going ahead. Here's one specifically, yes, but both ramps need to be lengthened. The ramps will be more adequate and done in such a way that they are far easier to use, far better accessibility for not just those in wheelchairs, but also for those that are struggling to walk a bit more than most. No, they're counting that as a double ramp. All right. Then, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to close this meeting. Thank you once again for your time and for being here, for being present. Thank you. I want to call it for your affirmation of the work that the committee has done. I do need to give a big thank you to the committee for their tireless hours, sacrifice to come and meet. At one stage, we would meet every fortnight, and then we'd come back and we'd have to change everything because we came up with other ideas. As Alan said, at one stage, we were standing out the back there and so talking about stretching that and doing this, and then we were up here, and then we were there. So it's been quite interesting to see how it's developed to what we're proposing. And I want to say thank you specifically to Alan for the work that you've put in. I know that one video I got, or one SMS I got, was 2 o'clock in the morning because he needed to get it out. And he has put a lot of time and effort in, and we do really appreciate that. Once again, thank you, everybody. Shall we stand and say the benediction? And we say together, may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all, now and forevermore. Amen. God bless. Stay safe. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.